Thank you for joining us today. This is a very big occasion for us, a major milestone. And I want to start off by thanking the cohort, the first cohort, and the five companies we had in this cohort for an absolutely outstanding engagement from their side. When we started this journey, there were lots of questions in our minds in terms of, how do we, sort of support them? Can we add value to them? Can they add value to the overall GE healthcare portfolio, so on and so forth? And I would say that, but for their absolutely excellent engagement through the cohort, we wouldn't have been where we are at this point in time. So, I would say a very big thank you. I also want to thank the India team, including Dilip, Nritya, Girish Raghavan, and the mentors, because without their outstanding support here and engagement with the cohort, again, we wouldn't have been able to make the progress that we made so far. So look, this, in the last 8 months, we started the journey sometime in, November or so. When we started the journey, we were very clear that in the healthcare space, it is very, very important for us to be able to have a cohort, to have an ecosystem, because we realized that in the digital space, specifically in healthcare, and when you look at AI, there's going to be a tremendous amount of work that is going to happen in the ecosystem that needs to get integrated with the offerings that GE Healthcare has for us to be able to really create the impact, for our customers, right? Our customer base is basically the providers, the healthcare providers, the large sort of health systems across the globe. And from their, standpoint, it is extremely important that we are able to provide them solutions and workflow, and integrate into their workflows very, very seamlessly. Some of the solutions from clinical diagnostic processes perspective or operational efficiency standpoint. I think when we started this cohort, we talked to a number of customers across the globe, and I think the consistent themes, that we heard at that time, where they were really looking at operational efficiency and clinical efficiency as two major areas that they wanted digital to, help them with, right? Now, operational efficiencies include everything, including patient journey, whether it is the number of scans you can do, the number of images you can read, the accuracy of those images, so on and so forth. Clinical efficiency is all about, can I make sure that there is accuracy in everything that I do, and I can minimize wastage across the health system. We often quote this number, but as we look at the US market, which is supposed to be the most advanced sort of healthcare market, but for the recent experiences that we have had, unfortunately, in the US, there is almost $1 trillion waste that happens in the health system in the US overall. And I think this is where application of digital technologies and AI plays a very significant role, because, if we can avoid, those errors, which are obviously nasty for patients, but also result in a significant amount of wastage within the health system, that's a huge contribution that we can make as an ecosystem to the larger sort of healthcare community across the globe. So I think operational efficiency and clinical efficiency are two areas, that we absolutely need to focus on. And this is where we conceptualized the Edison platform, about 2 years back within GE Healthcare, because we realized that while we had a lot of equipment, we had to connect that up, aggregate a lot of information across the health system, both from the devices as well as horizontally across the health system, from EMRs, digital pathology, genomics, so on and so forth. And then, sort of assist, creation of large scale applications by adding value added services from a healthcare perspective, right? Whether it is related to data, whether it is related to AI frameworks, whether it is related to advanced visualization, clinical and diagnostic viewers, and generally the orchestration frameworks that are required for us to be able to integrate these solutions seamlessly in customer environment. Now, when we looked at the startup community, one of the things that we realized is that a number of startups have absolutely excellent technologies and AI algorithms, where we find challenges where the ability of the startups to really integrate seamlessly in a clinical workflow, I think this still remains a large problem across the industry, because from a clinician's perspective, unless we can integrate the solutions and the technologies, be it digital or AI related specifically, they are not very, very useful. So I think the platform really helps us to really assist that activity of being able to take a really good algorithm and integrate it seamlessly in a clinical environment, in a clinical workflow. And I think what we have seen through this journey, obviously, we as GE Healthcare have also learned significantly in terms of the platform capabilities that we need to further build out. As we took this journey with the startup community, we also use this platform internally very heavily to do a number of activities, related to data and AI within GE Healthcare itself. I want to share a slide here because, in the last 3 or 4 months, we've seen some unprecedented, sort of changes that have happened because of COVID specifically and coronavirus. And essentially, what we are seeing here, is almost a sort of disaggregation of the clinic, of a brick and mortar sort of hospital, because of the social distancing norms and so on and so forth. Interestingly, across the globe, our customers have told us that their online consults have gone up by 200 to 300%. I'll give you a couple of data points here. One of the very large, and one of the top health systems here in the US, we work very, very closely with them. They used to do on an average 2 to 5, maybe sometimes 7 online consults a day. That number shot up within 3 weeks to about 1,800, successful consults online. Now that, generally speaking, what we are realizing is that that's an aspect that's not going to revert back completely as we come out of, hopefully as we come out of COVID in the next few months here. And some of those changes are going to stick. It's also opening up tremendous opportunities, for the health systems to be able to, cater to a much larger population and a much larger, sort of patient base across the globe without the proximity, without the need for a proximity of the patients to the physical hospital, so to say. And I think this particular journey, whether we call it virtual health or telemedicine, depending on which side of the equation you're looking at, whether it is, the hospital end of the infrastructure, which would be the virtual hospital, or the patient end of the story, which is really the telemedicine story, is going to be quite significant in terms of the changes that are going to happen worldwide, both from a government regulation perspective, but just in terms of how healthcare is delivered going forward. And I think this is where the platform can really play a significant role in terms of making sure that we can stitch together that ecosystem as an overlay on a virtual infrastructure, so that at the end of the day, the health systems can successfully execute the patient care pathways in a virtual environment. The data points that we have got are that, about 80% of a care pathway can be successfully executed, in a virtual domain without really bringing the patient into the hospital. And just think about that. That number used to be less than 10% just 3 months back. But if we can execute 80% of the journey, through really virtual care, okay, is going to significantly change the face of healthcare going forward. And I think that's a pretty exciting sort of situation, but also a very important situation for us to population health and be able to give access to a lot more patients across the globe compared to what we are able to do at this point in time through the sort of physical hospital environments that have always been there. Now, the physical hospital is never going to go away, obviously, because at least 20 to 30% of that care pathway eventually will have to be executed, within the hospital environment, be it surgeries, be it, specific, sort of tests, some scanning, and so on and so forth. But it is very important for us to look at this particular equation and see how we can apply, what's happening in the larger ecosystem and combine that with the platform capabilities such as Edison, to really enable that virtual health as well as telemedicine scenarios going forward. And I think, this is a pretty exciting, journey for us, going forward. A lot of work that the cohorts did, this time around is going to be pretty relevant in this whole virtual healthcare environment. In fact, it becomes more and more relevant as we sort of look at delivering, care pathways more and more virtually going forward. From a health system perspective, it is important that they are able to control the patient journey because, from their perspective, while this opens up new opportunities, it also brings in new sort of competition. And given the pressures that they are, from a margin perspective, and in the geographies like US where they're under tremendous pressures because of the elective procedures going away for almost a quarter and so on and so forth, their ability to successfully treat patients across the globe, maybe even, but definitely across the state boundaries in the US or in Europe, is going to be extremely important. I think this is where, this whole idea about our ability to bring together digital technologies, equipment, data, most importantly, and aid it with AI and the frameworks around it, advanced visualization frameworks as well as orchestration frameworks, is going to be absolutely key. And I think this is where we are really excited to continue to engage with the larger ecosystem. And given the amount of work and innovation that happens in India, it's absolutely an important destination for us in terms of where we are going to find some of these solutions in the ecosystem. And I must say that even in the last 3 or 4 months that we have had this unprecedented times from a healthcare perspective, a number of cohorts, number of companies in this particular cohort have very quickly been able to tweak their roadmaps and be able to create solutions that we are right now trying out in different parts of the globe, even for COVID treatment and detection across in Europe specifically as well as in the US. And I was really pleased with the way these companies were able to very quickly pivot, make use of the platform, but also make use of the reach that GE Healthcare has with some of the key customers in Europe and US to be able to put together solutions that can potentially change the face of the way the healthcare is actually delivered in the market. So I would again say, a big thank you to everyone who has been involved in this particular program. Edison as a platform, as well as the entire developer ecosystem, is an absolutely key element of GE Healthcare's digital strategy. And we realize that more than 50 to 70% of the digital activities will have to happen outside of GE Healthcare, and we consider it our responsibility to be able to bring that ecosystem in a way that is going to be useful for clinicians going forward. So with that, I want to say a big thank you for everybody involved, and I really look forward to continued engagement with the cohort. So I mean, to the cohort, I would say, this is a beginning of a journey. Today is a major milestone, a logical milestone, but we really look at this as really a beginning of a long journey through which we will engage with you and continue to engage with you as an alumni group. And we look forward to the second cohort that we will kick off shortly. Thank you.